Some of the best coaching advice I ever received had nothing to do with asking better questions. It had nothing to do with building rapport, mastering a technique, or getting certified in the latest methodology. It was two simple words: leave them. Now, before you close this video, I'm not talking about abandoning your clients. I'm not talking about going cold or detaching from the work, or even stopping caring about the people that you serve. What I'm talking about is much more subtle and much more powerful, because here's what I've learned after 30 years of coaching and training other coaches. The coach who hasn't learned how to leave their clients may actually be getting in their way. Presence isn't just about showing up, it's about what you leave behind in order to get there, to show up. And great coaches learn to leave in three specific ways. They learn to leave the last session, they leave themselves, and they leave the outcome. Those are the three things that we're covering today. And by the end of this video, you'll have a completely different relationship with what it means to be fully present for the people that you coach. Let's paint a picture. You just finished a tough session. Your client was resistant, or the conversation circled without resolution, and you tried 3 different approaches and none of them landed. And now, 2 minutes later, your next client is on the screen. You smile and say, "Hey, great to see you." And you ask how their week went, but for the first 10 minutes or so of that session, perhaps you're not really there. You're still in the last one. And this is what's called session contamination. And it happens to many coaches, especially the ones who care deeply about the work. And it shows up in 3 ways: mental residue, where you're still replaying what just happened and wondering what you should have said differently; anticipatory thinking, where you're so focused on what you're going to say next that you stop actually hearing what your client is saying right now; and emotional contagion, where you've absorbed the anxiety, the frustration, or the stuckness from your last client, and you're carrying it forward into this one without even realizing it. Now, the ICF lists maintain presence as a core competency, competency number 5. And that means that this is not a soft skill, this is a professional standard. And yet this topic is not focused on enough in coaching circles. So here's the first leave, which is essentially a reset. Before every session, give yourself 90 seconds to release, reflect, and return. Release by standing up, shaking it out. Take 3 deliberate breaths and signal to your nervous system that the last session is over, it's complete. Then reflect, write down 1 sentence. What am I leaving behind from that last session? And then close the notebook. And then finally return. 1 grounding breath, 1 intention word for the session that you're about to enter, and that's it. Release, reflect, and return. 90 seconds, do that consistently. It beats 10 minutes done occasionally. And if your 90 seconds feels impossible between your sessions, that's probably an indication that there's a scheduling problem. And a self-care conversation is probably worth having. The second leave is the hardest one for many coaches to grasp, because it asks you to leave yourself at the door. Most coaches drift into sessions, they open the call, exchange pleasantries, and react to wherever the client takes them. Great coaches do something different. They choose their state before they enter the room. 1 or 2 minutes before every session, you can ask yourself one question: who do I need to be for this client right now? Not what do I need to do, or what technique do I want to do, or should I use for this client? Who do I need to be? Then pick 1 word as an anchor: curious, steady, grounded, open. That's your anchor for the session, and you return to it anytime you feel yourself drifting away. Then once the session begins, there's 1 more practice I'd like you to try. And you can think of this as the empty chair technique. Before your client arrives, mentally empty your chair of everything that you think you know about your client. Their history, their patterns, the thing they always say, where they always get stuck. Leave all of it outside the room, because this client today is not who they were last week. And if you walk in already knowing who they are, you're going to miss who they're becoming. In NLP, we call this working from the perceptual position, specifically stepping into second position, which means genuinely inhabiting your client's perspective rather than observing it from your own. It's the mechanism behind true presence, and it's completely trainable. When you're fully absorbed in a session, and you'll know when you are, time moves differently. You notice everything: tone, pace, pauses, what they're not saying. Your questions don't come from a checklist. They rise from a genuine curiosity, and that's what leaving yourself makes possible. Now we get to the most advanced leave of all, the most misunderstood: non-attachment. And I want to be very clear about what it is and what it isn't. It's not indifference. It's not going through the motions. It's not caring less about your clients. Non-attachment means you're fully invested in your client and completely free of needing a particular result. Here's so you know when you're attached to an outcome. You start pushing a solution before the client is ready for it. You feel personally deflated when a client doesn't follow through on what they said they were going to do. Or you find yourself subtly steering the conversation toward the answer that you've already decided is right for them. Does that sound familiar? And here's the paradox at the heart of great coaching. The less you try to fix, the more your client transforms. Think of it this way. Your job is to be the riverbank, not the current. Steady, present, defining the space, but not trying to be the water. When you release your grip on the outcome, something remarkable happens. The client stops looking to you for the answer and starts finding it in themselves. And that's where real transformation lives. And again, 2 words, leave them. Leave the last session so you can arrive clean. Leave yourself so you can be fully absorbed, and leave the outcome so your client can own their breakthrough. Not because they don't matter to you, but because they matter too much for you to show up as anything less than fully present. And here's my question for you. Which one of these 3 ways of leaving is hardest for you right now? And what's one thing, just one thing, that you'll do this week to practice it? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read every one. That's it for this one. Until next time, develop yourself, empower others, and lead by example.